So hello and welcome. Welcome to this webinar, Heal the Hidden Cause. Over the next little while, I'm going to share a bit about how I got into the mind-body connection. I'm going to talk about the mind-body connection for diagnosis, healing, and empowerment. And at the end, I'm going to do a few what I'm calling diagnosis demo readings. So when people that signed up for this, if you were up for it, you wanted me to give you a bit of a reading and give you some insight into why you might be experiencing some health problems, then you were to put that in the registration form. So I've picked a few of them. Some will remain anonymous as requested, but I will share that and that'll help bring together the understanding of what we're going to cover over the next 90 minutes or so. So how's that sound? Does that sound okay? We're going to dive into diagnosis, healing, and empowerment over the next little while. I got into it rather unexpectedly. I was back in, I think it was about 2005. I was invited to be a therapist on a detox retreat in southern Spain. With no idea what to expect, I packed my bags and headed off for a week in the sun. At that point, I didn't know that people actually did detox retreats. I thought detox, I'd only heard about it in the context of, drugs and getting off drugs and stuff and going into detox. But turns out people actually do pay to go and be juice fast for a week in the sunshine, do colon cleansing, yoga, massage, that sort of stuff. And I was invited along as a therapist. Now, I expected to go and do just kind of mindy stuff, but the first person that walked in, I said, "How can I help?" And they said they had IBS. And it's embarrassing to say at this point in time, but I had to ask what it was. I know, I'm sorry. But they said, they kind of worryingly looked at me and went, irritable bowel syndrome. And I was a little bit embarrassed because we didn't talk about that sort of stuff in my family. It was kind of a poo-poo subject, no pun intended. And what happened was I didn't really know what to do because I would expect them to want to work on an anxiety issue or a confidence issue or whatever. And they said they were attending the retreat because they wanted to work on their IBS. Now, fortunately, a couple of weeks prior to that, I had been in a little house just outside Glasgow, attending the very first talk by a guy who was about to self-publish his first book. Some of you may have heard of him, Dr. David Hamilton. This Glaswegian ex-scientist who became fascinated with the placebo effect, started researching the mind-body connection, and he was about to release It's the Thought That Counts. And I sat there for a couple hours that evening in a little house, and it was raining outside, I remember. It was Glasgow or Glasgow. And I was fascinated by all the research that he was sharing. Most of it went over my head. I didn't understand a lot of the concepts. He hadn't quite learned how to simplify it yet. He does amazing work with that now. And so a couple of weeks later, all I could really remember was that the mind and body were connected. So I said to my client, the mind and body are connected. And they went, yes. Shall we see if there might be a mind or body cause to why you have IBS? At which point they went, well, yeah, that sounds great. Let's explore if there might be a mind-based cause to this. I remember looking down at my blank pad, looking up at their expectant eyes. Thankfully, a few questions came out of my mouth. And we quickly established that there was an unresolved event in her life. We could see the causal connection between what had gone on then, what was unresolved, the belief that was formed, the emotions that were unresolved, and what the body was doing. We spent the rest of the session getting peace with that event, and she left. Next person walks in. I'm like, hi, how can I help? They said, I've got psoriasis. I said, the mind and body are connected. Shall we see if there might be a mind-based cause to this? And they went, yes. And because it appeared to work before, I just did it again. And again, this person had an unresolved past event in their past, or an unresolved event in their past. We could see the connection between what had gone on in their life and why her body would need to create an extra thick layer of defense through the extra thick layer of skin with psoriasis. We worked to resolve that event, and she left. That happened 20 times on that retreat. And because I was the mind guy on a detox retreat, Mind Detox was born. About a year later, I found myself in Turkey and being filmed as part of a television series. And the camera guy and the sound guys and the director saying, "Okay, Sandy, do your mind detox thing." All right. So I ended up kind of being shoved in at the deep end. What happened after that was people around, it was 30 countries that was broadcasting, and people around the world saw the 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 journey of people going on a detox retreat, um, showing up with hyperhidrosis, eczema, psoriasis, weight gain, migraines, things like that, finding the root causes of them, also doing a detox as well, and having massive benefits and complete healings. And so that's how I got into the mind body connection. It wasn't expected. I was just trying not to ruin my first invitation to a detox retreat in southern Spain, and I was just trying to help the person I was working with. Over the next little while, I got kind of busy, and I started living out a suitcase for several years. Those that know me know that's true. Just traveling around all the time, and I became curious about whether I was some sort of gifted healer or I just stumbled across a method of healing. And so I started using the same technique over and over again. And yeah, it appeared to be the method itself, the methodology itself. And over the last 20 years since then, I've obviously worked with a lot of people to explore the potential mind body connection causes of their health conditions. And I've developed a range of ways in order to diagnose that. So it's not just mind detox anymore. There's a lot of other ways that I do it. And over the years, I've trained people in that knowledge through my academy courses. But I realized end of last year that that information isn't widely known. It's buried within bigger courses. And I've never ever brought it all together and distilled it into all that I know how to diagnose and help support the healing of conditions that have a mind body connection cause. And so that's why I'm here today with you. I really feel today more than ever, um, everybody needs to know this, needs to have this understanding and ability. So I want to pass that on. Does that sound okay? I want to get that on. So this is the first step in that, doing a little webinar like this. And the reason I'm doing this webinar today is because I'm doing a mind body connections course starting on the 1st of May. So full disclosure, this is why I'm here. I would love for you to come to that. So I'm going to share as much practical and helpful stuff today as possible, but keep that in mind as we go through the process. Now, that course is going to be very practical because everything I'm going to share with you has come through my practical clinical experience. I have done research into mind-body connection. I know the scientific studies and that sort of stuff, but I specialize more in the practical side of things. And that's why for that course, I'm going to actually have Dr. David Hamilton come along for one of the sessions and do all the theory stuff for you because I want to focus on the practical. Does that sound okay? So let's get into why we want to even know this sort of stuff. Well, there's a few obvious reasons as to why we want to get to know and learn about the mind-body connection. The first one is pretty obvious: healing. It's the first one, it's probably the most obvious one, but if you have a health condition of any kind whatsoever, to me, it makes sense to know and do everything you can in order to aid your own healing. So healing is probably the number one reason why you'd want to do this. Another reason to really have this understanding, and I'm going to share stuff today, don't get me wrong, this is not just a sales pitch for that course. There's a lot I'm going to share today, but another reason why you want to do this is for, like I said in the invitation to you to come today, it's about diagnosis. It's about diagnosis. And there's a lot of confusion about diagnosis in the world of health conditions because without knowing this sort of stuff, it's very common for us to not really ever find out why we've developed certain chronic health conditions. And why is this? Why is there a massive gap or hole in the whole field of health around cause? Well, there's a lot of confusion because, and I love doctors. I've got friends who are doctors, and I've been to doctors, and doctors are amazing. They do amazing work, but they don't get trained in cause. Um, they get trained in symptoms, labels, and interventions. Symptoms, labels, and interventions. They whenever you ask someone, why, doctor, why is this happening? The usual answers are usually things like age, wear and tear, it runs in the family, sometimes even just bad luck or whatever. Or sometimes they're honest, I don't know. But this is what we can do about it. This is how we can treat the symptoms or whatever. But it's not obvious. And it's because when you go to a doctor, you'll often be told why you have your problem. They'll say, you're gaining weight because of your thyroid. You've got itchy skin because you have eczema. You have painful joints because you have arthritis. You're tired all the time and you got headaches or whatever because you've got ME, chronic fatigue. Does that make sense? It sounds like you're being told the reason why you've got the problem, but all you're getting is a label for the collection of symptoms that you're presenting to the doctor that day. Does that make sense, guys? Can I have a little thumbs up from people? I can see it on my screen. We're just getting a label. Now, I'm not putting doctors down, and sometimes maybe occasionally they might have the reason why, but more often than not, and maybe I'm biased because all I get to talk to is people that have been to the doctor and not been told why, and they're coming to me because of that. So I might be biased here, but all we're really getting is a label for a collection of symptoms, and then we're being offered something to treat the symptoms that are presenting. And often the thing we're getting has its own side effects as well and creates new symptoms, and you've got to get more medication for these symptoms, and before you know it, you're just giving the pharmaceutical companies a lot of money. Anyway, don't let me get started there. I'll try and keep this neutral. I remember my mum came to me one day, super happy. She was like, I'm so relieved, son. I'm like, oh, why? She's like, I finally know why I've had so much pain in my fingers. It's because I've got arthritis. Now, how common is that, guys? Just hear that. How common is that idea? But it's not because you got arthritis. Arthritis is just the name. Why is the body doing what it's doing? What's causing it to do that? When we start exploring that, well, we start getting closer to the reasons why. And when you understand why, you can actually finally do something about it. And it's a very, very empowering thing to do. Anyway, so the second reason why you want to learn about the mind-body connection is diagnosis, to really be able to answer the big question, why? And when you understand why, the solutions are often are obvious. So in a way, the why is the hard bit. How to heal it is actually easier once you actually know why. Okay. The third reason why you might want to learn about the mind-body connection is prevention, preventative medicine, believe it or not. But it's actually a major benefit. Because the more you understand the underlying common causes of health conditions, the more you can become aware in real time if you are repeatedly experiencing certain thoughts and emotions that often lead to certain physical conditions. And in real time, you can resolve it at the thoughts and emotions realm before it has to become physical. You see, most conditions that I'm dealing with people, there's been an incubation period where certain thoughts, emotions, and life circumstances were going on for a while, remained unresolved, and eventually, to get our attention or something, it becomes a physical condition. But it's not the first thing that the body does. It's not the first thing that happens. It starts in the non-physical realm and then ends up in the physical realm. Do you see what I'm saying there? And so, from a preventative medicine perspective, it's been amazing for me. I can see often like, oh, I'm caught in a thing that I know if I'm not careful, could lead to psoriasis or eczema or headaches or whatever. And I'm able to actually resolve it at its root before it even has to incarnate into something physical. So prevention is actually a really cool reason for learning about this. Number four, the fourth benefit of learning about the mind-body connection and what we're going to talk about today and in the course is body wisdom. The body doesn't lie. The body is one of the most is telling us the truth all the time, and the body has incredible things to teach us. It can actually be an ally on our journey of learning, growth, development, and awakening. And so, in a very beautiful way, we can develop a very beautiful relationship with our body, and it can be one of our main teachers in this lifetime. It is a wonderful barometer as to what is in and out of balance, what we are resisting, what we're attached to, what we have conflicts with, what we have a problem about, what we might be denying, what we might be suppressing. See, we might have learned to suppress our emotions, but the we can't cheat or trick the body. You know, we can kind of bow our head in the sand or ignore an issue, but the body won't. And so it'll say, "Hey, call it dharma, call it karma, call it whatever you want, but this is something you have to deal with in this lifetime. This is something you have to evolve and learn and grow beyond and awaken or whatever in this lifetime." And so it can be a wonderful ally in that journey. So I really wanted to add that to the list because it might appeal to you. Does that appeal to anyone here? This idea of being able to actually use the body as a teacher, it's beautiful. And the final benefit I want to share today, which I've touched upon already, is empowerment. It's incredibly empowering. Because if you don't believe in the mind body connection, or you believe, or you ignore it, or if you believe there is no mind body connection, and the mind is having no impact on the body, then, like I said earlier, the reasons for us getting sick or experiencing health conditions or whatever often boil down to the classic things like age, wear and tear, it just happened, it runs in the family, that kind of stuff. And it's disempowering because if there's only physical causes for physical conditions, if that's what someone believes, then that means there's only a physical solution to it. What that means is we have to rely on lotions, potions, pills, medications, operations, or whatever, something physical in order to heal this thing that has only a physical cause. And that is disempowering because empowerment is choice. The more choice we have, the more empowered we are and the more free we are. Okay? So if we want to increase our choices, it makes sense to be open to the possibility that there might be a mind-body connection caused to something that's going on. Now, let me do the small print at the start. I'm not saying doctors are bad. I'm not saying modern medicine is bad. I'm not saying you should throw all that in the trash and only do mind-body connection stuff. I'm saying use what I'm sharing with you integratively, holistically. Include it in your health and well-being strategies or protocols or whatever. It's a vital ingredient, an absolute vital ingredient. Okay, but I'm not saying that there's always a mind-body connection cause. I'm not saying that there's never a physical cause for stuff. Okay, I'm just saying include this in your understanding. Okay, happy with that, guys? Okay. So learning about the mind-body connection can help you with diagnosis, aid healing, and massively increase empowerment. And have I've seen over the years, it's not only life-changing, but it has literally been life-saving for some. Okay, so it's a big deal. So let's get into the mind-body connection. The mind-body connection is scientifically proven, but the good news is you do not have to be wearing a lab coat. or have a doctorate in order to prove it. Okay. Everyday examples of the mind body connection are things like your face turning red if you get embarrassed. That's a real physical reaction, like blood has been redirected to your face due to a thought that you had. Crying or laughing are both physical responses to mental stimulus. You have literally, you create water and it runs down your face from watching something or hearing something or thinking about something. Butterflies in your belly. Anyone ever had nervousness or butterflies in your belly? Even though I've been doing this for 20 years and I've taught all around the world and I've done so many talks in front of people, I still get butterflies before I do a webinar like this. It's just like my body's reaction, like getting into the zone or whatever. But butterflies in your belly, that's again blood being redirected to your belly. And actually, it's being directed away from the belly. It's draining because you don't need it right now because the body's going into fight or flight or whatever. So butterflies in your belly, very physical reaction. Even sexual arousal is a mind-body connection thing. So they've got all these potentially everyday experiences that we've probably all had this week, and they're all mind-body connection. So I'd like to invite you uh, to do a little bit mind-body monitoring over the next few days. Can I give you a little game to play? Is that all right? A little task to do? I'd like you to just for the next few hours, if that before you forget, be vigilant about the physical reactions that occur in your body when you are thinking about certain things. Okay. Be vigilant about certain physical reactions in your body when you're thinking about certain things or going through different certain experiences. Okay. Notice what happens in your body when you think about certain memories or certain people. Notice what happens in your body when you find something funny or sad. Like, notice what happens. Notice what happens to your body if you start thinking about something that you are worried about. Notice what happens in your body if you're moaning about someone or something. I'm sure no one here does that, but you can even just force yourself to moan just to play the game. But have a wee moan and just notice what happens in your body. And notice what happens in your body when you go through certain experiences, like you're stuck in traffic, you're late for something, um, you're watching a movie or a TV show or whatever, just start noticing what's happening in your body. Because what you're going to find is stuff's going to be happening. Stuff's going to be happening. These thoughts are going to be turning into emotions, and these emotions are going to be turning into certain physical responses. And it's a vital first step, and that's why I'm starting with it when we're talking about the mind-body connection, because we can talk about all the theory you like and all these scientific studies that prove that thinking about certain things activate certain parts of the brain, all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, this is only going to mean something to you if you embody the real this understanding. Um, it's a vital first step because when you really understand and recognize in your own life that, yeah, my mind is constantly having an impact on my body, it is no longer a massive step. In fact, it's a very small step to then be open to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this chronic health condition might have some kind of mind or emotional or life circumstantial cause to it. Okay? Do you see why we're starting there at the fundamental basics? Happy with that so far? Make sense? Yes, I have an order something from people. I'm just talking to myself right now, so occasional nod from people at the top, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So to play with that, I know it's very basic, but it's where we kind of need to start if we're at complete beginning, and I don't know where everyone's at on this call. So check it out. Explore, tune in what's happening in my body when I do certain things in my mind. And it was not a massive step to then be open to the possibility. And why is it important to be open to the possibility? Because it helps once you actually resolve something for the healing to happen, if you're actually open to it. All right. Something else I wanted to talk about today with the mind body connection, and I've not really spoken about this much in the past, is the two-way relationship of the mind-body connection. The two-way relationship of the mind-body connection. It is a two-way relationship. The mind is influencing the body. And you may have thought that that was the main focus of what I'm going to talk about today. But actually, I'm also going to talk initially about how the body is affecting the mind, because it's a bit of the field of work that I've noticed isn't really talked about as much as I think it should be. So the mind is impacting the body, but the body is impacting the mind. Okay? So to understand this, the simplest way to understand it is to get to know your autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system is the systems that's in charge of fight, flight, freeze, flood, fawn. Fight, flight, freeze, flood, fawn. And for this, I'm going to bring up a little diagram so you guys can see. Those that have been around for a while know that I love this diagram. What is on your screen? It should just be the bell curve of the autonomic nervous system. Can I just check that that's all you can see, guys, right now? Can I have a thumbs up? Is that on the screen right now? And I'm going to make just me, so you're not looking, and make myself a bit bigger for the replay. Okay, so this is the bell curve of the autonomic nervous system. It shows that we're wanting to be down here in baseline, where we are peaceful, present, productive, connected to ourselves, able to connect with others. Great place to be down here. And we want to be spending the majority of our day regulated, balanced, with a nervous system that is soothed and secure and knows that it's safe. But then life happens, and we have these responses built in order to help us through life. And we've got fight, flight, freeze, flood, fawn. So as we start to enter, for example, the flight response, if there's some sort of threat, and that threat can be external, but more often than not, the threat is mind-made, and it's not actually happening right now. It's preempting something or worrying about something or whatever. But if we start going into flight, we start going into concern, and the sympathetic nervous system starts what's called arousing up into worry, anxiety. It can go up to fear. And then if it gets beyond fear, we start going to the flood response, which would be more panic. Okay? So we start going up like this. You've also got irritation, frustration, anger, hostility, rage. That's the fight response. If we get up into the freeze, that's where we've gone beyond and gone into overwhelm. That's where if someone's had an accident or whatever, they might end up in freeze for a bit. That's the shock. You might recognize shock. Oh, that person's just in shock. They're not really feeling anything. But then the flood comes later as the body starts trying to regulate down back to baseline. So up here, we've got freeze. We got another response I'll talk about in a minute. So what's this got to do with the mind-body connection? Well, it's got a lot to do with it, because if we're in flight, if our nervous system, our body and nervous system has got stuck or is more prone and really activated into flight, we're going to have more fear and anxiety. We're going to have more negative thinking and even catastrophic thoughts and thinking. Okay, so if we're in flight, that's how the nervous system is impacting our thoughts and emotions. You see how the nervous system is impacting the mind, body to mind. If we're in fight, then we can experience more frustration, anger. We're going to experience more thoughts of annoyance and discontentment. Okay, so again, if we're in fight, if we're stuck in fight more, if we're prone more to that, then the body is going to be affecting the mind in that way. More frustration, anger, and thoughts of annoyance and discontentment. If we're up here and we're into the freeze, then we can end up feeling more numb, disassociated, disconnected, isolated, alone in the world, and we can have thoughts and feelings that are more associated with depression. Okay, so again, that might be a massive eye-opening moment for you if you've never come across this before, that if you were going to plot depression on here, it would probably be more up here. Okay, numb dissociation, and it's happened often after we've flooded with an overwhelm and we've dropped over into this. If we're flooding, That's where we're going to be experiencing more extreme anxiety, up to panic, where it's really overwhelming. Or we could be having more overwhelming rage, or we could be overwhelming sadness, where or grief or whatever, where it's really overwhelming and we're unable to function at that moment in time because we're just too much in emotions. That's where that's the flood response. And then we've got the fourth response of the ANS, which is referred to as fawning. Fawning. And that's known as the please and appease response, the please and appease response. And for this, we can end up with thoughts and feelings and behaviors that aim to minimize distress or danger or avoid conflict. We are doing things and having thoughts and feelings that are, and behaviors that are trying to minimize things like criticism, disapproval. We can have lead to thoughts and emotions that lead to more codependency, submissiveness. We can have more anxiety around people about their feelings and what's going on for them. We can experience more some feelings of depression when we're in fawning due to the disconnection from ourselves and the suppression of emotions in the self. Like I said, we can be suppressing and hiding feelings there. We can end up abandoning our needs if we're in fawn. And essentially, we can end up having a lack of healthy boundaries. And so I'm trying to share with that long list there all the things that are end up happening in the mind and emotions and therefore the behaviors as a result of where our nervous system is. Where our nervous system is. Now, fawning can be a bit trickier to diagnose or recognize, unless you might know already that you're a bit of a people pleaser and you find it hard to say no, or you know you lack boundaries. But it can be trickier to recognize because fawn can kind of show up appearing as other responses. Because fawning is essentially having one foot on the gas of fight and one foot on the brake of flight. Sorry, of freeze. I beg your pardon, of freeze. Okay, so we got one foot on the gas of fight or flight and one foot on the gas of freeze. So, oh, I keep messing my words up. I apologize. Fawning can be confusing and maybe not recognized because it kind of shows up as other of the responses. Like I said, we have one foot on the gas, which is fight and flight, and we have one foot on the brake, which is freeze. Yay, I managed to get the words out. Okay. Either way, I want you to be aware of this because it's not often recognized that the body is also impacting the mind. It can, we're thinking often in this realm of work that, oh, what emotion am I going and why is that a physical thing? But we can actually have our autonomic nervous system in a certain situation, which then leads to us going through a lot of mental and emotional stuff. And so that's why it's important to regulate your autonomic nervous system, why you want to invest in doing whatever you can to release the trauma from your brain and body, any trauma that may have gone through that might have got you stuck in these responses. Still with me? Making sense? Did you like that bit? Was that useful to see it from that perspective? Okay, great. But let's talk about mind to body, because I've got a feeling that might have been one of the reasons that you're really kind of curious about being here today, listening to our webinar on Heal the Hidden Cause. It goes without saying that constant worry or stress can cause physical changes like muscle tension, pain, headaches, stomach problems. If you've been worrying about something or you're really nervous about something, a big presentation or whatever, you can find yourself rushing off the toilet before going on stage or whatever. This is not uncommon. But the causes of health conditions when it comes to the mind-body connection, the causes go far deeper than just stress. I'm stressed about something. Because stress is a symptom. Stress is a symptom. Stress is caused by something else. Stress on the body to the point where it becomes dis-ease. Stress is actually a symptom. So so even when you go to the doctor and they're a little bit more open to holistic things and they say it's caused by stress, it's still not being told the cause. Sorry, but it's not, because stress is a symptom, not a cause. Okay. So let's start to really kind of get in, and I want to start just getting your brain muscles working and trying to convey this different way, this unique way, this really rare and wonderful way of being able to perceive and understand yourself, your body, others, the world, all that sort of stuff. So the body is highly symbolic. That's what I need you to take away from today. The body is highly symbolic. And the trick is to being able to understand and interpret its symbolic messages. So really being able to tune in and understand what it's trying to tell you through symbolism. Through symbolism. Okay. The body often presents symptoms in areas of the body that serve particular purposes and functions. Okay. And these purposes and functions are often reflecting what's happening in our mind, emotions, and life. Okay, so let me repeat that. The body is highly symbolic. It will often present symptoms in areas of parts of the body that serve a particular purpose, and the purpose of that body part, organ, or whatever, the purpose of that is often reflecting what's actually going on in our mind, emotions, or life. As a result, I'm more interested in the function and purpose of the organ or the body part, for example, rather than getting too caught up in the labels that I'm given. Okay, so someone will come to me and they'll say, "I've got blah," and one of my first questions will be, "Where is it showing up in your life? Where is it showing up in your body? What's actually happening to that body part?" And I'm very interested to hear how it's described. Okay, I'm very interested to hear how it's described. Due to the symbolic nature of the mind-body connection, the body is often reflecting something that's going on in our mind, emotions, or life. So let me give you some examples, because honestly, there's the theory, but what you really need is examples. Uh, if you're feeling stuck, okay, and we can be chronically feeling stuck for a while before we're even conscious of it, or then we become aware of it, but we just kind of keep just plodding on our day-to-day life, and we're feeling stuck, but we're just getting on and getting on. You know, we're still going and doing the shopping and going to work and whatever, but we're feeling stuck about something. It can eventually show up in the hips, for example, because the hips are about progress. Okay, making progress. One of the demos I'm going to share later today links to someone with hip problems. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about that in a bit. If you're feeling like unsupported, if you can have concerns about your ability to support yourself, or you have concerns about your ability to support someone else or others, or you have resistance to supporting someone else, like you're doing it, but it's kind of begrudgingly, maybe. I don't know. I'm just giving examples. Maybe it's a family member that you never really got on with, but now you're lumped with taking care of them or whatever. I don't know. There can be so many backstories. But if you have some issue around support, either feeling unsupported or inability to support yourself or reluctance to support other or whatever, then you can end up with either knee issues or lower back problems, for example. Okay. Now, knee issues are a bit more complex because they can have multiple causes because they have multiple purposes. You see? But the lumbar and the lower back is about support, and the knees are about supporting. Does that make sense, guys? I once I was doing a talk with a lady in it was alternatives in London. It was quite a big talk, and it was kind of skeptical audience actually that day. And I was like, this woman at the front offered herself as a case study. So I asked her, what's going on? She said, I've got terrible knee problems. I can't walk. I need to use a stick, and one of my knees has got really bad. And I said, how does it feel to be living with that? You know, the symptoms. She's like, I just feel like I can't support myself. And I'm like, oh, really? I can't support you. You can't support yourself. I'm like, okay. I'm like, where in your life have you been feeling that way? And she went, oh my God, For the months before leading up to when I got the knee problem, I'd been chronically concerned about I'm retiring, am I going to have enough money to support myself into my older years? I'm getting older now, da da da. And so I spent a few minutes with her, helping her get peace with that fear and that concern that she had around being able to support herself. God's honest truth. And maybe someone here was at that talk, but she ended up standing up and walking up the steps behind me on the stage. And it was the first time she was able to walk up the steps without her stick. And it happened that quickly for her. So I'm just going to drop that little case study in there, that little success story. But so the knees can be about support, and the lower back can be about support. If you have a sore neck, if you have a pain in your neck, then you might want to ask yourself, who is the pain in my neck? Okay, so some of this is kind of symbolic and some of it's obvious, but really, the neck is about viewpoints. We use the neck to have different viewpoints. That is one of the main functions of the neck, is it turns around and enables us to have different viewpoints. Okay. So if we have an issue with the neck, it's often about viewpoints. Now it can be viewpoints that we have towards ourself. Okay, and that's usually showing up on the left side because that's the feminine side, and it's all about internal world and receiving and towards self and sense of self. So that's the left side. So we've got the neck and the viewpoints. So that's more internal viewpoints. So if you're being self-critical, if there's self-violence, self-hatred, or anything putting yourself down, self-judgment, then it can show up on the left side of the neck. Because some people are reverse organized, but the majority of people are organized that way. If it's the right pain on the right side, it's more likely going to be some sort of external viewpoint, some external judgment, opinion that someone said about you didn't like, or a conversation you had, or whatever. Does that make any sense? But the neck is about viewpoints. Okay, so it's very symbolic, and it's relating to the purpose and function of the body part. If you have calf problems in your calf, pain in your calf muscles or that area of your body, well, ask yourself, what do I use the calf for? And it's used to commit to your next step. So, where in my life am I not committing to my next step? Where am I feeling held back from being able to commit to my next step? Etc., etc. These are the sort of questions that you want to do. Now, this is why I just want to take a quick time out and go, this is why this is so freaking awesome. Sorry, it's not a proper swear word. It's kind of it's not, I didn't really swear. This is why it's so awesome to know this stuff, because out of the million possibilities as to why this could be happening, this understanding makes you razor focused in your inquiry. And that's why it's so powerful from a personal perspective. And if you're a professional working in this area, why you want to have this understanding when helping others and working with others. Because you only have so much time with people, right? With your client, for example, and you need to be able to target your questioning really precise. It can be open questioning, but it can help you get there much faster. Now, if you don't want to lead anyone at any point whatsoever, then you can use it as confirmation later on. Once you've used more open questions, you got to the root cause, and you go, isn't it interesting? Because the cause is usually that, and you've just told me an event about that, and that makes sense. So you can use it either way. Anyway, I digress a little bit, but it's just amazing to know this sort of stuff. Dizziness. If you're feeling dizziness, then where are you feeling unstable, or you don't know where you stand in your life? Okay, if there's any dizziness or nausea, that kind of stuff. Where in your life is it unstable, uncertain? Like I said, you don't know where you stand. Okay. Meaning and purpose, function and purpose. What's going on here? All right. If you have an eyesight issue, what can't you see? What don't you want to look at? These are the sorts of questions you want to explore. Okay. If you have no vision, you can't see into the future, you don't know what's coming up, you don't know where you're going with this, people can become more short-sighted. I think I always get confused because it's back to front, but or there might be certain things you don't want to look at within yourself or others. You can impact your eyes. Okay. I remember having a very interesting conversation about that on a 6-hour train journey with Dr. David Hamilton when we are going to do a workshop together, challenging him about why he wears glasses. It was a very cool conversation. He went, "Oh my God, I had never realized." So we had a conversation and he realized the cause as to why he wore glasses. Check next time when you see him. He hardly wears them. Okay. If you're feeling under attack, well, the purpose of the skin is one of our outer boundaries. It's about protection. It's also about touch and connection. And so if you're feeling under attack, then there's more likely there's a chance of things like psoriasis. If it's like feeling unsafe or feeling bullied or some sort of threat, then you're more likely to have psoriasis as the skin creates an extra thick layer of defense in order to protect itself from the perceived bullying, attack, near-death experience or accident or whatever. Some people have come to me because they developed it after an accident or whatever. But there's usually some sort of threat, fear, bullying, unsafety. Okay? If, on the other hand, someone's got eczema, what's happening? What's happening in the body? Well, it's becoming hypersensitive. Why is it becoming hypersensitive? Usually because of some sort of separation anxiety. Some sort of separation anxiety. Okay? I once had a person that had eczema just across the back of their legs. Okay. And we mapped it back and discovered that she just recently lost her father. And that's when it flared up. So it's very confusing. I don't know why I've got eczema there since losing my father. But we established that that was where her father would hold her on his big, strong arm. That was unconsciously, an association was made between the father and the backs of her legs as a child. And then when she lost her father, the skin became hypersensitive, trying to reach out and connect with father. Is this making sense, guys? So really, I mean, I could talk all day about this sort of stuff. But essentially, the body is a great indicator as to what's in and out of balance within our mind, emotions, and if there's any conflict going on, unconscious suppression or resistance, or it tells the truth, and that's what I love about the body because I love truth. I love truth. So it's one of the ways we can get closer to it. Now, one of the best ways we can get closer to the truth and closer to the understanding that I'm trying to convey to you today, and I'll be going into much greater detail in the course. So hopefully this is whetting your appetite. You want to come along? I got a great offer to share with you at the end of this, by the way. So it's not so. Stick around for that. It's a bonus. I'm going to share with you a few case studies, and then we're going to have a little short break, and then we're going to come back with the final part, which is going to be the demo readings and stuff. Okay, all right. But I want to share with you some case studies. These are from my Mind Detox book. And I'm going to read them to you, not just to blow my own trumpet, not just to advertise, but also I'm going to pause occasionally and explain why it worked. Okay, so I'm going to use these as a way of demonstrating what I'm trying to convey to you right now about the symbolic nature of the mind-body connection. Symbolism isn't the only way to understand, by the way. It's just it's just the way I'm showing you today, just for the record. It's one of the ways you can understand. Meet John, who was pain-free without painkillers. Ever since a car accident over 2 years ago, I'd been suffering from a painful lower back. After a conversation with Sandy, we discovered the root cause of my back was okay. After a conversation with Sandy, we discovered the root cause of why my back was vulnerable in the first place, which linked back to when my dad went into hospital for a few weeks when I was a child. So let me explain that. That's a good example of an accident. So someone's had an accident. Now, who here has gone over on your ankle before, but just kind of walked it off? But just kind of walked it off though. Has it ever happened to anyone here? You kind of walk along, you go over, and you're like, oh, and it's fine. And you just keep on walking. Has ever anyone happened to anyone? And Angie's saying yes. Thank you for responding. But someone else goes over on their ankle. I did it today. Someone else goes over on the ankle and it breaks. Okay. So, although yes, accidents happen, like, but I'm not really talking about the falling off a ladder kind of accident here. I'm talking about we can often say, well, I've got this issue that's long-standing because of an accident. I would say either you need to do things, resolve and release the trauma of the accident itself if you want to heal, because it could be a trauma and it hasn't been released from the brain and body, therefore the physical symptoms of the accident are continuing, or you want to explore why that particular body part or whatever was vulnerable in the first place to being injured by the accident. See what I'm saying? Similarly, if you've got something like, people come to me and they say, oh, I've got a problem with my wrists because of repetitive strain injury because of working on the computer all day. Okay. I'll say, well, that doesn't make sense to me because the body is designed to get stronger and the more you use it, more flexible, more. It's meant to be more. It's better the more it's used, right? That's the interesting thing about the body. It doesn't wear and tear. It gets better. So the question is, what were you doing repeatedly that you didn't want to be doing? Was there potentially a chronic resistance to what you were doing repeatedly? Does that make sense? That's where we go with this. And that's where you actually get to be able to heal this thing that just kind of happened or I'm a victim to. Actually, no, we may have participated in it and therefore I can do something about it. Okay. So injuries and accidents, you want to explore why was that vulnerable in the first place? If it's not healing, have I released the trauma of it, which we can also do. And also things like repetitive strain injury answers that question too a little bit. All right. Where am I? When I resolved it, the pain went away immediately. So he basically we had to work on a memory from his childhood of when his father went into hospital, and that was one of the first times when he felt vulnerable, alone, etc., unsupported. Okay, remember lower back pain. The pain went away immediately. That night, I slept through with no painkillers for the first time in over 2 years, and I got up the next day and did yoga. Well, that's a pretty good success story to start on, Shah. That's a pretty good success story to start on. So remember, lower back links to support. Some accident injuries are not caused by accident, but we want to explore why it's vulnerable. Okay, next let's talk to Katie. Katie, who had a knee problem. After a kneecap dislocation, ooh, that's not very nice, is it? Kneecap dislocation. I found myself experiencing extreme pain every time I tried to move my knee. No wonder. Making physiotherapy and therefore recovery impossible. I had a session with Sandy where he identified that the original dislocation had reminded me of a traumatic event from my childhood, and the memory was manifesting itself as pain in my knee. After the session, I returned to physiotherapy and was able to get on an exercise bike. I regained the ability to walk soon after. I truly believe that if I'd undergone traditional therapy, probably coupled with the antidepressants my doctor had been recommending, it would have been taken many months before I recovered. I felt euphoric after the session, like a huge weight had been lifted off from my head, blah, blah. Okay, so knee problems about support, but also can be about attack. You see, if someone was to jump out at you, what would be one of the first parts of your body that would engage to prepare yourself to protect yourself? Your knees. Okay. So knees can be both support, but also linked with attack or feeling under attack or feeling unsafe in relation around something. So you also want to explore the root cause of threat or unsafety when you're healing knee issues. Is this helpful, guys? Are you finding this interesting? Oh, I hope so. You can smile and nod occasionally, just to because I can. It just helps me keep going. Meet Debbie, who had painful periods for 30 years. 30 years. I'd been suffering from painful periods for 30 years, ever since I started my menstrual cycle at age 13. I experienced Sunny's method when I was 43, and I wish I hadn't waited so long. Every month, I was left with no energy and felt out of control and resentful. I discovered during my time with Sandy that I had had my first period on my 13th birthday, and it made me feel dirty, uncomfortable, sad, scared, and unloved. This emotion linked with an earlier event when, age 4, I had felt the same in relation to whether my dad loved me. When I recognized the reality that he had loved me my entire life, all of the other negative emotions cleared instantly. 2 weeks later, I had my first pain free period in 30 years. Okay. So save on paracetamol. Come to the course. No, I'm joking. I'm not saying this is going to be a case for everybody, but I'm sharing some exciting success stories for today. Hope you like hearing about this. But when it comes to periods, it's very dangerous ground for me to talk about, a man to talk about, because I don't understand. I know I don't understand. Okay, let's just have that in up front. However, there's multiple causes I've recognized over the years for painful periods. One does often link to the initial experiences of it. And if you had any support around that, or if it was shamed upon, or you had no conversations about, there was no connection with mum around that time when it happened, all that sort of stuff. So there's things around the initial time that remains unresolved, and it just keeps getting triggered month after month after month because the body is very symbolic and works through the law of association. So when similar things happen, it brings back similar things, similar emotions, and therefore similar symptoms. Also, you want to explore what's happening each month when I have a period, and for some, depending on circumstance, um, their chance to have a child that month is passing. Like they didn't have one this month. And so there can be a grief related to that, or some kind of loss, or some there can be stuff around that as well. The body mourning. It's also not all bad, right? It can be cleansing and purifying, and I hear that stuff unresolved in your month comes up to be resolved at that time, and it's one of the reasons why women live longer on average because they have that detox every month. So just planting a few seeds there if it's useful or interesting. Okay. Meet Roz, who had chronic abdominal pain. I had been sent from one hospital department to another for several years, but no one seemed to be able to discover the cause of my abdominal pain until I saw Sandy. He helped me to get to the real emotional root of the problem, which stemmed from the belief that I was abandoned. And the pain that had given me years of agony disappeared. All the other associated physical and emotional problems disappeared as well. Initially, I was half waiting for them to return, but 2 years on, and I'm still feeling great. That's a really interesting case study, actually. She was actually in one of my workshops in Edinburgh, and I she put her hand up near the end of a 4-day practitioner training, I think it was, or maybe a weekend, I can't remember. And we did a live demo right there. Her issue was um, it, it went back to when she was a child. She she managed to escape from her nursery. So she lived in a cul-de-sac, a dead end road, I guess, if you don't know the Scottish, in Britain we call it cul-de-sac. Um, and her house was on this side of the road, and the nursery happened to be in another house on the other side of the road. And one day she managed to escape from nursery without anyone noticing, run home, and no one was home. And she had this moment of feeling completely abandoned on the doorstep, okay, until someone found her and blah, blah, blah. But we know, even hearing that little bit of the story, that she wasn't abandoned, right? But in her mind, she was. And she'd created a belief, I'm abandonable. I'm abandoned and I'm abandonable. So she wasn't only experiencing the stomach pains, but when I caught up with her after, I think we had lunch, I think, and she was celebrating like her being over this chronic years of pain. Um, she noted that a couple of things that were really cool. She said not only did the pain go away, but also Jealousy has disappeared from my marriage. Despite years of my husband reassuring me and telling me he loves me, and I know he loves me at some level, I felt so jealous all the time. Where do you think what do you think the root cause of the jealousy was? The fear of abandonment, all stemming from that day when she was younger. Another thing is she'd been working in a big pharmaceutical company, and she said to me, I left my job. I've set up on my own. And I realized that I'd always been scared to be out on my own. Oh my God. She healed the day where she was literally out on her own. And that led to a career change as well. So I just love how when you heal something over there, it can have multiple impacts over there. Because it's not just impacting body, it's impacting the beliefs at the core of these health conditions are impacting all aspects of our life. So it's another way of getting in and finding beliefs we didn't even know we had to fix issues we didn't even intend to fix. So I just wanted to share that story there. And I'm seeing Mandy smiling at the top of my screen. Congratulations for moving on from your job. And I can see you resonating with what I'm saying there. Having gone through all the therapy we've done, there's new possibilities are opening up for you. So anyway, meet Rachel, who had migraines. I'd been suffering from regular migraines for years. During my consultation with Sani, I discovered and healed the emotional cause of her migraines, which stemmed back to when a friend committed suicide. This also linked to an earlier event when a family member died suddenly. Amazingly, my headache went away immediately when I gave myself permission to be at peace with the passing of those loved ones. I have not had a migraine since. Now, I'm not saying that's always the cause of migraines. I'm just trying to show that, and I will talk about migraines a bit later after the break, but I'm just trying to demonstrate that there's these events that have happened and these unresolved emotions and these unresolved beliefs that stem from all that sort of stuff. And that's the mind-body connection, guys. This is the mind-body connection. I hope you're finding this helpful. Just a little side note with pain. If you have chronic pain, one way to curb it is to explore where in your life you're either not saying certain things or not feeling certain things. Because one of the antidotes to pain is to either feel the unfeelable or say the unsayable. Okay? If you need support to do that, don't rush into anything. But I'm just saying, when we finally say something or feel something that we've been unwilling to say or feel, that can really help. Okay, that's all I'll say there today. Meet Ian, who was constipated. I had suffered from badly working bowels ever since I was a child. I worked with Sandy when I was 34 and discovered that I had a hidden belief that it was unsafe to go to the toilet. How interesting. There's other reasons for constipation. This was this person's personal one. To be honest, once we healed that out-of-date belief, I immediately had to go to the toilet as my constipation had ceased to exist. 1 month on, and my bowels are functioning brilliantly. And I've even lost about a stone, 6.4 kilos in weight. Without dieting, now my body knows it's safe to let go. Okay? So again, he really got the idea. Constipation, what's happening in the body? What is my body actually doing? It's not letting go. It's holding on. So we want to explore in our own life. Where in my life am I holding on? Where in my life am I not letting go? I'm willing to let go of something. Where have I got fear of loss? Am I really worried about money this month and not having enough? All of these things can lead to chronic or spells of constipation. Okay? Thank me later. Thank me later. That'll come in handy one day. Okay, a couple more, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll come back. I'll share some starter questions that you can take away with you today to really start exploring mind body connection causes. We'll do some demos, and I'll bring it to close. Are we having a nice time? Is this useful? Is this what you thought you signed up for? Heal the hidden cause? Okay, cool. Meet Susan, who struggled with her weight. Nobody here probably has this issue, but I thought I'd just bring weight to the, talk about a weight example just in case. I had gained weight in my 20s, but didn't understand why. Whatever I did to lose it didn't make much difference. When working with Sandy, I found a connection between when the weight gain happened and what was going on in my life at the time. It became clear to me that the extra weight was my body's way of protecting me from the conflict that was happening in my family. When I let go of the unresolved emotions relating to that difficult time in my life, I immediately began to lose weight. It was magic. So that was her testimonial. So, my little side note on that is that weight gain can be associated with needing protection. It can be, for some women, not all, a way to hide. If there's been some sort of bad event where being seen was a bad thing, um, or whatever. It can be a result of feeling vulnerable or unsafe. So if there's underlying vulnerability or unsafety going on, and it can also have a completely different non-symbolic cause, and it can be being caused by something completely different, and that's usually where there's emotional eating going on. Okay, I'm very aware that some people that are overweight are not emotional eating, and they're actually eating all the good things and exercising, doing all the right things. Okay, doing all the right things. So where's the weight gain thing? So if it's not the safety thing or the vulnerable thing or the hiding thing or the protection thing, or the the feeling out of control thing, because eating disorder or food stuff can be used to regain control. There's so many other reasons, by the way. Okay, I'm trying to give you highlights and headlines, so if I leave one out, please don't. But it can also be a different cause somewhere else, over in the periphery, whereas we're using food to self-soothe and to comfort. Okay, so that's not necessarily a direct symbolic cause. That's more there's something else needing resolved, and when you resolve that, you will no longer need to self-soothe, or your nervous system will be able to regulate itself, and you won't need that mechanism in order to comfort and soothe. Okay, or reward as well. Food and binging and stuff like that can also be a reward as well. After a busy day, I deserve it. But if there's other ways. Okay, so that's the weight stuff. Meet Alistair, who sweated excessively. Well, I changed his name for the book, but everyone knows that watched the TV series. His name's Alex, but I had to his name's Alex because he was on the TV series. One of them I did. Despite being a very fit and healthy Royal Marine, I had to hide the fact that I sweated uncontrollably. I had to always wear dark colored clothes. I slept on a towel because he sweated into his bed, and I couldn't go for the promotion I wanted because sweating was seen as a sign of being unfit. He wanted to be a PE teacher in the Marines. Sandy helped me to get to parts of the mind I didn't know existed. We found a memory of a time at school when a teacher shouted at me unfairly, and I felt angry that I was being made to look stupid. It was really interesting. During the initial inquiry with Alex, he said, without even realizing, anger bubbles up inside me. He used the word anger bubbles up inside me. And what was his body doing? Literally, I saw it at the beginning of when I first met him. He took his shirt off, big Royal Marine. I felt really inferior beside him. And he had this big pecs, but the sweat just bubbling out, literally bubbling and just rolling down all the time. He had an operation. It just moved it from his hands to the rest of his body. Nothing had worked. We helped him get peace with that memory, where he was furious. I mean, he had rage towards that teacher who unfairly shouted at him at school. When I achieved peace with the past event, the excessive sweating that I'd had for years calmed down. I'm now in control of the condition and able to get on with my life with greater confidence and peace of mind. Yeah, it was really cool. That show was being filmed in August in Turkey, which is pretty hot. And we had our session. He noticed an immediate change. And that the next night we went out down to the local beach, and he went shopping in a little shop. He went to and started bartering and stuff. And he said before that, anytime the attention was on him or whatever, he would immediately burst out even more. And he was bartering with the guy, and nothing was happening in his body. And he was like the hyperhidrosis had stopped. And finally, before the break, my legs had been completely covered with psoriasis for over 25 years. I discovered using Sunny's method that it was my body's way of protecting me from a series of external threats, including bullying, that I had encountered during my teenage years. Within a few weeks of healing the fears associated with my past bullying, the skin on my legs was back to normal. Okay. So I personally have seen so many examples over the last 20 years that I am completely convinced that there is a mind-body connection, that that we can, if there is a mind-based cause to a health condition, there's ways of diagnosing it to aid the healing. I'm not making any medical claims here. I'm sharing other people's stories of what we have witnessed, okay, and what they've experienced, and that's why I wanted to use their words that they'd given me. Okay, so I just want to take a little time out. Will you stick around? We're just going to have a little breather, stretch, friend, have a drink of water, whatever. Well, it's literally going to be 5 minutes. Just a 5 minute stretch. Actually, it'll be 6 or 7 because I'm going to see it 25 past the hour, 25 past 5 UK. All right, guys, if you have any questions, get them in over the break if you want, and I will see you at 25 past for the final bit. And you want to stick around for it. It's going to be good. All right, see you soon. Welcome back. For those that watching the replay, that was a really quick break, probably about a second. So I want to continue today by giving you some starter questions, some questions you can take away with and use to start exploring and healing the hidden cause, and really kind of try to understand and tune into the body as to how your body is speaking your mind in the creation of certain conditions. Okay, these are just some of the questions that I like to use with myself and my clients. So first of all, I talked about this one earlier. What is happening within my body? What is my body actually doing? So the purpose of that question, what is happening within my body? What is my body actually doing? The purpose of that question is to get beyond the diagnosis, the label you've been given, and actually get back to the mechanics. Like, where is it showing up? What is actually happening? Is the body, like, for example, with osteoporosis, I can't remember, I can't say that word, but weakening of the bones. In that scenario, what is the body actually doing? You've got the label, which I can't say, but you've also got like, well, the bones are getting more brittle, they're getting more softer, flexible. Basically, with that sort of thing, you kind of, if you start exploring what's actually happening in the body, you can start getting towards the mind-body connection cause, because you can then start going, well, why would my bones need to do that? You know, where in my life or me am I rigid, inflexible, needing to become more bendy? I don't know a better way of putting it. But if the body is lacking balance, or your eyes are not allowing you to see up close, for example, then what in your life do you not want to look at or see? Does that make sense? So by getting beyond just the label and asking yourself, what is the body? What's actually happening in the body? Is there a blockage? Is there what's going on? That gives you clues about the mind-body connection cause. Number two, how might the physical condition be an attempt to adapt or survive or respond to some kind of past or current life circumstance? That's an example of, we used an example earlier of the psoriasis, the body growing an extra thick layer of defense. So what might my body need to be doing that against? What's been going on where what would cause my body to need to create that extra thick layer of defense? If the physical condition was trying to send a symbolic message to you, what might it be saying? If the body was trying to send a symbolic message to you, what might it be saying? This is one of my favorite questions. If the physical condition was an emotion, what emotion would it be? If the physical condition was an emotion, what emotion would it be? Okay. I'm going to give an example of that later when I'm doing the uh, diagnosis demo for someone. If the physical condition was if the condition was a negative emotion, what emotion would it be? Okay. Now, you want to trust your first answer with that sort of question, but it gives you the next question. So if you go, well, I don't know why I'm saying this, but it just feels anxious or it just feels irritated, then where in my life have I been feeling anxious? Where in my life have I been feeling irritated? What am I feeling irritated about or who or whatever? So it just takes you into different questions that can lead to clarity. How might my body be mirroring my life? How might my body be mirroring my life? For example, do I have a pain in my neck? If so, who might be the pain in my neck? Okay. Now, here's an interesting one. What was happening in my life the 12 to 18 months leading up to when I first noticed the physical condition or started getting symptoms? What was happening in my life the 12 to 18 months leading up to when I first noticed the symptoms? There's usually an incubation period. I mentioned this right at the beginning. The incubation period, because it doesn't it takes a while. It can take a while for thoughts and emotions to eventually turn into physical. Okay. We usually get the warning signs in the thought and emotion realm. If we don't get the hint and resolve it there, then it can get into the physical realm. Okay. But that is a golden question. You know, that is an amazing, simple, obvious. Now we've had the last hour and a half together, but what was happening the 12 to 18 months leading up to when I first noticed the symptoms? Okay, did you go through a big change at work? Did you go through a divorce, or were you worried about your relationship, or was there relationship stuff going on? Did you have money concerns? I mean, a lot of us have gone through a collective trauma in the last 4 years of the COVID stuff and that sort of stuff. A lot of people I'm meeting these days are having to release the trauma of that, and that's triggered things for them. So, what was happening in your life leading up to that? Obvious question. Now that you know what we've just covered in the last hour and a half, but very important. And I want to, for the last question, I want to plant a seed of a totally different way of looking at this. What problematic situation was resolved? What problematic situation was resolved? You see, it's common when we're doing this sort of mind body connection work to assume that I a bad thing was happening right up until I got the health condition or the symptoms started appearing. However, there's some really good research out there that suggests that we can also get physical symptoms when something has been resolved in our life. When something's been resolved. I'm sorry? What do you mean? Well, I tell you what, I um I often got headaches when I had just submitted my latest manuscript to my publishers. You know? Now, I wasn't necessarily aware that it was a stress, but it is a stressful thing. It's about a year or more project. There's a lot of work that goes into a book from first creation, first draft through to editing process. It's a big task. Even for the author, if you have a publisher, you'd still do a lot of work in there. And it's a resolution the moment that manuscript is finally sent off and it's done, you know? And what can happen is you go from what's called phase one into phase two. And sometimes when you go you're in phase one, the symptoms are suppressed because you're actually in a form of fight or flight. Then you have some kind of resolution and you go into phase two, and that's when symptoms can appear. Okay. For example, colds and flus are often a phase two symptom. There's a resolution that's happened. Um, Someone's finally worked their ass off for weeks and they get to go on holiday and they start feeling sick at the airport. Anyone ever had that happen to them? So they've worked really hard. You've been in a state of stress trying to get ready for the holiday. It's so ironic when you think about it. And then when you finally go on holiday, you get sick. But actually, you don't get sick. Your body's actually healing. It's detoxing. It's releasing all the toxins. It's releasing the toxicity that has built up um, over the last few weeks or months or whatever. And it's using the organs of elimination to do that. And it does that through cold symptoms and flus and stuff like that. So that's just an example. Does that help, guys? It's a really important question, because if you're kind of like, but nothing bad was going on when I got the symptoms, well, ask yourself what was resolved. And then you can still work on the mind, body, action, cause. You just go through it a different way. Once you've got the mind, body, action, cause, the resolution of the thing that was a problem, you would still want to work on why it was a problem in the first place, that thing, and resolve why that was a problem to get to the point where you need a resolution in the later on. So you still would need to resolve something probably, but it's a great question if you're kind of sitting there going, but nothing bad was going on. In fact, I just finally decided to leave my job and my knee got sore. What happened there? Or my hips got sore, but I'd actually finally just handed in my resignation. These are real examples from real clients. Okay, so that's just an example. Health conditions can show up when you least expect them, and at a point when you're like, but why is that happening now? It doesn't make sense. Okay, what would you like to do next? Shall we get on and do some diagnosis demo readings? I made the decision to do this. And then I realized the practicalities of actually having people do it live, it could get really messy and take a very long time. And I don't want to open things up for anyone in a session. And it could take, that I need to then, with my due diligence, work with that person live to make sure they're okay, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of complications in doing what I am going to do. But, I also realized that, like we were seeing with the numbers today, we got a lot more people signed up for this that actually showed up. So the chances of actually people being here to actually have that live interaction wasn't there too. So I couldn't plan for that either. So what I've done is I've just taken a few of the requested issues, and I'm going to give the common reading for that, the common causes for that, okay? And again, I think it's a great way of solidifying what we've covered today so far. And so you can really get start getting your head into this mind-body connection mindset. So, number one, Beverly. Beverly said that she has hip and lower back pain, also deep physical fatigue and foot pain. Okay, so you guys, are you already kind of like, oh, I wonder what that could be? What's the common causes of that? So, hips we know are about progress. We already covered lower back about support. So I thought I'd start with this example because we've been talking about these things previously in this conversation today. The feet and foot pain, that can be linked with feeling stuck or unstable or ungrounded in some way, or it could be to do with feeling unable to step forward with something in your life. Okay, so we've got hips, we've got lower back, and we've got the feet. Which makes a very interesting first question already before we get into the fatigue. Where in your life do you feel unsupported in something you want to make progress with? Do you see how, with that understanding of the mind-body connection, we're able to construct a unique question for Beverly relating to progress and support? Where, and also feet. Where in your life do you feel unsupported in something you want to step forward and make progress with? Or where do you feel restricted, unable to step forward and make progress with something or whatever? What's going on that's making you feel unstable, uncertain, a little bit unsafe at the moment? Okay, so that's one aspect of it. She also mentioned deep physical fatigue. Well, fatigue is an interesting one. It's very common, and there's multiple causes of it. But I'm going to give you one of them today. Okay, one of them. One cause of fatigue is being chronically stuck in fight or flight for a while, but it's unresolved fight or flight. So we don't feel we can flight it, flight something in our life. We don't feel we can run away from something or get away from something, move away from something or someone. But we also don't feel we can fight it either. Okay? So fight or flight. So we end up in the body defaults to freeze, playing dead. You know, if you're like meet that big bear in the woods, they say the best thing to do is not to run, but actually to play dead. When there's a threat that you can't run from or you can't fight. So one cause of fatigue, chronic fatigue, is being stuck in this fight or flight to the point where you don't feel you can fight something. You don't, but you also can't get away from it either. I've met many men and women who like they're in a relationship and they can't fight that, but they can't get away. They don't want to get away from it either, and so they get stuck, and the body just defaults to bed. It's my safe place. I'm going to go to bed. But the body's protecting you through that fatigue. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's actually, it might feel horrible and like it's the body's against you, but actually it's trying to protect you with that fatigue. Okay? The body's on your side. It's always choosing options to help it survive. That's a prime directive of the body and the unconscious mind is survival. Okay? So when you engage it from that philosophy, that perspective, why is this happening to me? Changes to why is this happening to me? Less victimy and more like curiosity. And why would my body need to do this in order to survive something? So there you go. Hope you find that interesting. Where in your life do you feel unsupported in something you want to make progress with? Where have you been feeling stuck or unable to resolve something to the point it just feels too hard to deal with? So where has this got too hard to deal with? Overwhelm, in other words, overwhelm, and you tipped over into physical freeze. Helpful, guys? Do you like that? Helpful? Do you like this? Okay, number 2. Alison wrote saying she has tennis elbow. I don't know if Alison's here today, but Alison, let me tell you, Alison, that the elbows are often about change or embracing or repelling. So the elbows are used for these 3 purposes. And so it's one or both or all of them that might be going on for you. Okay. So if you think about, we use the elbows to embrace, to bring closer, to to bring in, or to get it to move away, to repel. Okay. Do you see that elbows are one of the main things that's doing this for me? It's this way or this way, right? So the elbows, and bringing in close or pushing away. I'm curious if it's the left elbow or the right elbow. You're saying tennis elbow. What if you have to go, watch the replay, and hope you catch the rest later. Thank you. If it's left elbow, it's going to be more about inner world again, inner like embracing or pushing away certain things that your internal self-image, sense of self, identities, roles, positions, jobs or whatever, but like your internal identity relating to all of that, relationships, all that sort of stuff. And the external would be more pushing away a person or an event or a situation or a circumstance or something. Does that make sense? So it depends if right is more probably external, left is more internal. Is that interesting? So, where in your life have you been resisting a change or attached to something changing? Where in your life have you been resisting a change or attached to something changing? And what in your life do you feel you want to push away or you can't quite feel you can bring close? Number three, Victoria said that she had psoriasis, arthritis, thyroid, overweight, and adrenal stuff going on. So I'm sorry to hear that list. Sending you my love. It's not pleasant, I'm sure. Um, we've already covered a couple of these, but let me just cover them all. So psoriasis, like I said, often feeling unsafe, attacked, bullied, unprotected, vulnerable. There can be some fear or anxiety going on. And essentially, you want to explore where you're needing an extra thick layer of defense, or if there's some kind of hurt that's unresolved. It's that sort of stuff that you're looking to explore. For the arthritis, it depends on where it's showing up in your body and what what's happening. Like, what's it? When I asked my mum about her arthritis, she said, "I just feel frustrated that I can't do the things I want to do." So that's a very unique way that she described it, and we were able to map back and explore the cause of that. So arthritis, it can depend on what's happening, but the general causes of arthritis are some kind of holding on, having fixed ideas about something, and we're back to that identity attachment. My mum's arthritis kicked in when she lost her nursery um, that she was running for years and she loved. And for certain different circumstances, the schools started changing their rules, saying they weren't going to let them into first primary one if you didn't go to their. I don't know why that happened. They didn't let you go to primary one unless you went to the nursery, and so there was certain things that in politics and stuff that started happening, which led to her beautiful home nursery that had raised so many beautiful little kids over the years, got shut down, and she developed it not long after that. So she lost her purpose, her job, her role in community and stuff, and she got arthritis in the hands. Other causes of arthritis: anger, grief, loss. Uh, Giving out without getting back what you need, so like an imbalance in giving and receiving. Um, there can be some fawning stuff going on. Other people's goals are more important than mine, or other people's needs or emotions are more important than mine. So if you've got, there might be someone that's quite a fawner and they're always worried about how their husband's feeling or how their wife is or whatever, or the kids, and they have some early life trauma that's causing them to neglect their own needs. And so there's a bit of that in arthritis. And sometimes it's got association with unresolved childhood rejections as well. Okay, so that's arthritis. You also mentioned thyroid issues. Now, it depends on if it's hypothyroidism or hyper or hypo, basically. There's different causes, and you never mentioned what that was. But what I do want to share today about thyroid is that the thyroid is often impacted by a childhood where you've had to grow up faster than your years. Okay, so parentification is the official term for that trauma. But if you have to grow up faster than your years, if you had to grow up psychologically faster than your physiology, okay, that's actually a trauma. It's a trauma response. These people that say, "Oh, my child is so grown up and mature." Well, actually, maybe that's a trauma response, and they had to. So there's a bigger story, a bigger conversation to had there. But if it's the thyroid, that's one thing I would get you to look at. Okay, that element of it. And we've already covered the overweight thing earlier. Unprotected, unsafe, unfamiliar or unfriendly environments, feeling lacking control, feeling the need to hide or you've been hiding, withholding or suppression of true feelings, feeling unable to cope, loss of comfort, feeling isolated, alone, that kind of thing. Or it could even be harsh self-speak. So you could have a lot of self-judgment going on with weight gain. And that's actually where the body needs to protect itself from the mind. So it's, from the protection perspective, it's actually protecting it from the harsh self-speak. And therefore, there can be a lack of self-love and acceptance. So these are all the things you want to explore to release or to rebuild and develop more for releasing weight gain. Does that make sense? Is that useful? Maybe, hopefully. A couple more, and then we'll bring this to a close. Pat said that he or she has been dealing with 24/7 migraines for the past 2 years. I am so sorry. That must be horrible. To get to the root cause of it, to explore it, you would want to be exploring things like where you're an invasion of space, where you're some kind of territorial issue, um, feeling the need to shut the world out, um, something in your life that you may have been feeling unable to cope around. But they just when I give these long lists, I'm not saying you're going to relate to all of them, just for the record. I should have said that at the beginning. These are the common ones, and you pick the one that resonates most, okay? But they all have a similar theme, and there's a reason why they're there. They're all developed through hundreds and hundreds of sessions and me tracking the mind-body connection causes of things that have shown up in my clients. What else? Migraines can also sometimes come from a resistance to unfair events, and there can be some unforgiveness going on. And there can also be guilt and shame that we need to heal. Guilt, regret, or shame, leading to a form of self-punishment as well. So there's different causes of migraines. It's quite, but I'm sorry that you've been having them 24/7. That must be horrible. Another thing you can do for migraines is you can tune in and ask yourself what it's like to be living with this personally and get your own describing words. It might be like, I feel under attack. Okay, where in my life have I been feeling that way? And that's another way into the mind-body connection potential cause. Someone who would prefer to remain anonymous said they've been experiencing reoccurring thrush. So that's an interesting one. The common causes really, stem from. This is a good example of earlier. Remember, I gave you the question: if this condition was an emotion, what emotion would it be? Remember, I gave you that question earlier. This is a great example of it, because with thrush, the emotion that's often described as is irritating or anger. Thrush itself is itchy and irritating, but it can also be stinging and burning sensations as well. And so it's a hot condition, if you think about it that way. From Chinese medicine, it'd be a fire condition. And so you're looking at more hot and fiery emotions and potential causes of that. And so you're looking more around the realm of anger, irritation, frustration, something under your skin. So the causes are often anger and irritated towards the self or over your past decisions and actions. So it can be a irritation towards self about some sort of past decision. We can be upset with a partner. There can be self-judgment or being self-critical. We can be feeling invaded by other people's ideas or their energy, opinions, and we can be ignoring our own needs in the process of that as well. So there can be some fawning going on. So there you go. How it's interesting, isn't it? Interesting, isn't it? I think it is. So I've got through as many of them I can in the time we have. I'm seeing the timer about 5 minutes from the end. So I would like to. I'm going to come when we close the official one. I'll stay online for a bit if there's any questions, okay? But I'm going to stop the recording and then stick around for anyone that wants to stay online and share or ask or anything, say goodbye or whatever. But for now, I just want to make sure that I've reminded you that I did today because I'd really love for you to come and learn a lot more with me. We're just scratching the surface, okay? Come to my Mind Body Connections course. It's the first time I've ever done it. It's for diagnosis, healing, and empowerment. I'm co-teaching one of the sessions of the 6 with David Hamilton. He's joining us, and I'm going to give him the floor that day, and he's going to share loads of the theory, but I'm going to bring the practical side to the course. And the reason it's happening over 6 weeks with 6 different sessions is my desire is not just to convey information, but to build within you a different attitude and mindset and perception. And that's why we're going to take that journey with you. There's one thing getting information. There's something else where you're left with a completely different perspective on the world because of your different perspective within your body. The course is focused on diagnosis. Okay. So it was buried in my other courses over the years in my mind detox courses. I've taught some of this before in my mind detox and my body cam and my camologist trainings and my academy courses. But this is focused more on diagnosis. This is for someone who, for personal use or professional use, wants to really have a deep understanding of this I mean, guys, like I said in my website, like I'm at the point these days where if I hear what's been going on in someone's life, I can usually tell what's been going on in their body, or if they tell me what's been going on mentally and emotionally, I can usually predict what physical stuff they're dealing with. Or if they literally just sit down in front of me and I see them, I can usually know what emotionally and what mentally stuff's been going on just from what's physically presenting. And it's not judgmental. It's actually leads to a huge amount of compassion and empathy and understanding. And what I love about this most when it comes to therapeutic work is the way it informs the questions. Like I said earlier, from a million things we could talk about, the conversation very quickly gets to what we really need to work on. And that's priceless for you as a practitioner, but also the clients you're going to work with. This is open to both personal and people that are wanting to do it professionally. If you do want to use it professionally, I'm also offering a little certification upgrade, very cheap, but I'm going to give you a chance to do an exam, some case studies, have a little bit extra support from me, and you'll actually be able to have a little certificate that you've done a Mind Body Connections course. Okay. So I'm offering that too. So here's the offer. It's already an early bird. I promised to keep the early bird as long as until a certain number of places were sold or people are coming. So that's still available, and that will stop as soon as I reach my number. So it's currently £565 for the 6-week course. Okay. Which I think is pretty good for what we're going to do, what I'm doing to prepare for this, and what I'm going to deliver, and what you're going to get from it. 565. That's the early bird price, and it'll become 995 when that's over. However, if you sign up within the next week, I'm saying a week because some people will be watching the replay. Okay, ideally the weekend. I just like you to get on and do it, so you don't forget and life moves on. But if you want to come and you sign up in the next 7 days, I'm also going to give you a one-to-one session during your course. Okay, included in the price. So at the moment, that's an amazing offer because my one-to-one sessions, when they're not on sale, are £300. Okay, so for half the price of the course, that's a pretty big bonus. Okay, so obviously, if you have no interest in the course and you want to work with me one-on-one, I may be putting a little offer out just to you guys of my one-on-one sessions. I'll pop it in the email after. So that is the option is available. But I'm doing this because I'd love for you to come in the course. Okay, so sannynewbigging.com/connections. /connections. Let me just pop that in the chat box just so you have it. It's pretty obvious though, because when you go to the website, it's on the homepage in my schedule. But go to sannynewbigging.com/connections. So in closing, you are a miracle. Your body is a marvel. It is incredibly wise. It is incredibly powerful. It has the ability to heal because as far as it's concerned, it's not unhealed. It's adapting to survive something. It's adapting to respond to something. It's trying to help you right now, although it may not feel that way. I get it. I strongly, strongly believe, and I've seen over year after year, that it's adapting to survive. And your body is not against you. It's very much on your side. It can be one of your greatest teachers in this world, in this lifetime. And it might be really inviting you to evolve beyond something, to let go of something, to have a new perception around something, to let go of a belief or two, and improve your mindset around something. Your body wants you to live your best life. It's your ultimate cheerleader, and it's a miracle what it's doing right now. And I just love this work because it's completely given me a beautiful relationship with my body, and it helps me to, I have a bit of a little headache at the back of my neck here right now, and I know it's because I'm ending this webinar. It's just a little resolution that I'm coming to end the webinar, and it was a big deal for me to prepare for this today, and I put a lot of thought and love into it for you. And so I can see this little resolution. But because I know what it is, I don't freak out. I don't get into fight or flight when I have a symptom appear. I'm able to like meet it, respond to it, love it, and give it what it needs. So, guys, join me on the Mind Body Connections course, starting 1st of May. I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope you've taken something from it. We've been on quite a journey where I talked about the reasons you want to understand the mind body connection and get this new perspective on life, how the body impacts the mind, and how the mind impacts the body, and how it's a two-way relationship. And I've shared some case studies in order to demonstrate the symbolic nature. But on the course, just so you know, we're not just going to cover what the messages, which is what we covered a bit today. We're also going to explore, I think I'm looking at my list here, 6 or 7 more ways in order to get in and understand and diagnose the potential cause of things. So there's a lot more to discover. Come and join me and for one of the sessions, Dr. David Hamilton, on the Mind Body Connections course, starting very, very soon. Okay. Thanks for being here. I'm going to stop the record now, but stick around for anyone that wants to stay online and just to say goodbye, say hello, or whatever you want to ask about. But until then, I wish you infinite peace, limitless love, and bye for now.